Welcome.
Hey, Red. Nice
You
to
doing?
see you.
I'm doing good, man.
I'm so glad you could be here for this.
I'm really glad I could be here.
This is really, for our franchise, a very historic project, but also for our industry, I think, especially our genre, you know, the horror genre, and how women like us do whatever we have to do in order to work, you know. And you are much like Shirley was in the beginning, Shirley Coscarelli, and like myself, and like you have just been an awesome force in the genre, because especially for Don Coscarelli, because you work so many different positions, and it's sort of become a character skill set for for him to choose someone like that. Do you think that he does it to that he just kind of spies that in a character trait in a person, or do you think that that's just a happenstance, what he calls the happy accidents?
Maybe a happy accident, but maybe somehow on an intuitive level, he just kind of knows who is going to be stepping up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And is able
I think
to
that's
do
a
things.
talent. That was always a talent about Don. That's how he was able to get you and me and all the great character, building the great characters, and knew we could do it, and it's awesome. I get chills when I think about it, to be honest with you. Think about the years and the great characters that like you played, and all the stuff you did, man. You were everywhere. She's everywhere. She's everywhere.
When you were growing up in Sherman Oaks?
For the most
Ish.
part, North Hollywood, Sherman Oaks.
Yeah, I lived in NoHo, Coinga and Magnolia. Yeah. That was fun in the earthquake. I was on the third floor of an apartment building. It just kind of did this kumbaya thing going on. So.
In '94, I was actually living in Encino then. I was in a house in Encino.
Wow.
Wow.
So I bet that was interesting. So what kind of neighborhood did you grow up in primarily?
Well, when I was born, it was in Hollywood, and then when I was 4, we moved to the Valley. So in the Valley in the 60s was a lot different than the Valley now. So on Sherman Way, there were dairy farms.
Wow.
So if you know Sherman Way now, you would never imagine there.
Never would have imagined.
Dairy farms,
Yeah.
but I know
It's completely landlocked now.
right. But no, you could go to the dairy farm and get your milk.
Get your milk. Get your
eggs,
cheese.
get your cheese, whatever you needed to do with the dairy
Take your
farm.
cow. Yeah.
And it was
know.
fresh. I mean, came.
It was fresh. We
Right.
really didn't need to go to the dairy farm for milk, because those were the days when the milkmen came
to
your
you.
house.
Oh,
with the
yes,
glass bottles.
When the
yes.
milkmen in the glass bottles, exactly.
Yeah, and the ice cream men would come down your block.
The ice cream
Yes.
men.
And then they go on, and then they get their 4-barrel shotgun and go hunting evil
No,
tall
no,
men.
we never did that.
Okay.
Only
well,
after I quit driving the truck.
What was the name of that pastry truck, the bakery truck
The
that would come
Helms,
through?
Helms
the Helms
Bakery. Yeah.
It's one of Reggie's favorite memories of Long Beach. So.
Oh, really? Because the Helms Bakery truck came over. They must have gone all over then.
Oh yeah, they were everywhere. I think it was hard for me to know, because I lived in Bixby Knolls in Long Beach, and it was like a small community all to itself. So I know it came down my street.
Well, the warehouse is on Venice Boulevard. The building is still there, but
Oh,
they're
wow.
not like furniture stores.
Wow.
And stuff.
Wow.
But the old building is still there.
Wow. Yeah,
Okay,
my
good
house
building.
is still in Bixby Knolls.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, really. I grew up there, so
Did
pretty
you?
far out.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school when we lived down the block for elementary. You could walk. So at Burbank Boulevard Elementary School, and then I went to Milliken Middle School and Grant High, all in the Valley, all in.
What was it like in school for you? I mean, did you have cliques that you fell in with, or were you kind of an outsider?
I was an outsider.
Imagine
I
that.
was an outsider. I really loved the theater department, and I actually really liked to act. but I didn't like to do improv because it
Yeah.
made me nervous.
Yeah.
So, but the only way you could act
Mm-hmm.
in the plays in high school
Right.
if you were in the drama club, and the only way you could be in the drama club was if you did improv.
Ah.
And so I never pursued it.
Yeah.
In my religious school, I was in the plays though.
Oh.
I was cast, but I never did it in high school. I was a loner. I was the person whose nose was in a book all the time.
Ah, little bookworm.
I was a bookworm.
Yeah.
Still am.
Well, there you are.
Did you have any pets when you were growing up?
I had a dog when I was a teenager. He was a collie. I loved him so.
Oh,
I miss him.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
And what were your memories of Halloween?
I loved Halloween.
I bet.
Halloween was my favorite holiday. Even before I did makeup, it was my favorite holiday. I would dress up every year. Casper was my favorite. I loved Casper the
Because
Friendly
he's a
Ghost.
friendly ghost.
She's
Right.
friendly.
He's friendly.
Yeah.
So, and then I progressed. But I always did something for Halloween every year. And even when I was in makeup school, when I was in college, in that makeup class, my boyfriend at the time was very tall. And we dressed him up. I made him up as a skull.
The original Tom Ant.
Yeah, he's 6'4". And, and so we dressed him up, and I did his makeup as a skull. We put him in front of somebody's house and rang the doorbell. And then we went and hid.
Wow.
And the poor woman didn't know what happened. She opened up the door and screamed.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh wow.
I guess it worked.
I guess it did. Must have did a good job.
What scared you as a child?
My dad would always have the old horror movies on. So there were some old horror movies that just really scared me. Some that I really loved, like I loved Bela Lugosi and Dracula
Sure,
and
sure.
Lon Chaney, all that. But The Haunting of Hill House was scary.
That was amazing. Yeah.
That was really scary to me. And when I was growing up, and even when I was a young adult, The Shining was just
Shining was
yeah.
scary. And you know, when I was a kid, I don't know, 11, something like that, I saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That was pretty scary too.
Oh my God, I get chills just thinking about it. Even now, you know, this was like 1956, you know, and just the idea, the concept of something coming down and taking over your whole body, your consciousness,
Right.
who you were, taking your personality away from you. That's all we have. That's who we are. And the idea of that was horrific. And that scared me so bad for so many years. And then when Don came along, and I made 2 movies with him, Jim the World's Greatest and Kenny and Company. And then Don kind of grew up in that same, I was older than him, but he kind of grew up in that same era. And so he really wanted to write a scary movie. And so he wrote Phantasm, and here we are.
40 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here we are.
That's good.
Amazing.
Who was the most influential woman in your life growing up, and why?
I would have to say my mother and my grandmother. So my grandmother lived with us. So she was like my second mom.
Wow, it's
And
great.
she came from Russia. She came over from Russia through Ellis Island.
Wow.
So
His dad came through Ellis.
your dad came from
Yeah,
Ellis?
he was born in Colchester, England, and he and his mom, his dad came over first, and somehow settled in Idaho.
Oh, that's strange.
Is that far out? Far
Well,
away?
maybe
and
not,
far-
because my family ended up in Sioux City, Iowa.
Really? Wow.
Wow.
And they came from the Ukraine,
Wow.
which was Russia
That's great.
at the time.
Oh,
It's still
sure.
Russia.
Oh, that must
Wow.
have been a real blast. Like, whoa, what a difference, Well, that's interesting that we both
Exactly.
are, we have parents that were born and raised or partially raised anyway,
Exactly.
in Europe.
That's right.
Amazing.
So you studied at Valley College, and then you have a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, from Cal State, right?
I do. And I also went to Joe Blasco Makeup Center
Wow.
after that. And for a while I was going to UCLA Extension for Interior Architectural Design.
Wow.
I was doing that too. I like school. School's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
What was
yeah.
college life like for you then?
You know, I lived at home.
Ah.
I lived at home.
Did you belong to any of the sororities or any of that?
No, I wasn't really into the Greek life.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I pretty much lived at home, and then I moved out with a boyfriend, and then I moved back home.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't do anything. College was, I did some makeup in college. That's what I liked to do.
And what was the one thing that they never taught you in university but you wish they had?
They didn't teach me anything about real life. I mean, I don't think you can just say there was only one thing. I think it just kind of dropped the ball, period.
Yeah. About the reality.
About what it would take to get out in the work field once you were working. They don't really tell you what it really takes.
The business of
the
it.
business side of it, and especially in the arts,
Right.
you know how difficult it is. Well, you have to have your portfolio, and I was a fine artist, so you have to have a portfolio, and then you have to know the right people to, if you want to get into a gallery or what you want to do with your life. So they didn't really prepare.
What projects are you working on these days, or what are you working on these days?
I freelance. I paint, so I do watercolors and acrylics and water-based oils. I do a lot of pet portraits, so I get a lot of commissions for that.
Pet portraits, I like
do.
that.
I do.
I like that.
I do that.
Yeah.
And I used to have a business where I would paint on furniture, and people would hire me, and I would, sell at craft shows.
Yeah.
And that kind of
You like painting dogs or cats more
anything.
than
I
one?
paint everything. I painted rabbits.
Rabbits. I like rabbits.
Fish.
Because I went to Poly High School in Long Beach, and we were the
Was that the
jackrabbits.
Jackrabbits.
Oh, so that was your mascot.
Right.
And when I was doing my business, I would have schools who would come to me and say, we're doing a fundraiser. Could you paint some things for us to sell? And we would like you to use the logo of our school. And I would do that as well.
Oh.
Wow, cool.
So how did you interview as a makeup artist? How did that, on Phantasm 2, how did that come about?
So actually, Survival Quest was
First.
predated.
Right.
And I was hired out of makeup school for Survival Quest. I got a call from my makeup school that there was an interview going on for this makeup job, and I went in and I interviewed with Don and I think it was Roberto. I think it was Don and Roberto, and
Roberto
they offered
Casada.
me-
Yeah.
and they offered me
A
the
job.
and I was thrilled. That wasn't my first film; it was actually my second. So I'd already had experience on a film before I went to makeup school out of college. But my hand was I was stage makeup, so my hand was a little heavy.
A little heavy.
And I wanted to go to makeup school, so I went to Joe Blasco. But and that's how. So I met Don that way, and then I was really lucky because when he was doing Phantasm 2, he called me, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing Phantasm 2. Would you like to come and we're doing some makeup tests. Can you come in?"
Did he mention,
test.
oh, by the way, Universal Pictures is going to distribute it?
Well, what he said was Universal doesn't know you, so we showed them your work, and they just want to make sure that you're okay. So come in and do some makeup tests.
Yeah.
Where we were figuring out looks, because on the original Phantasm, Shirley, Don's mom, did the makeup.
Did the makeup.
So when I was doing makeup, I said, well, can I change some of your makeups from the first film? So, for example, for Reggie, when I read this script, I said, well, he's an ice cream man in the ice cream truck, but those days are long gone pretty much. So I actually, since you were out in the sun a lot, I put a sun-toned base makeup. I made him darker because he was out in the sun.
Funny is
I had to
because
do his hands
I do the
too.
same
Right.
thing.
And you do the same thing?
I do. I
Yeah.
put a golden tint.
So I made sure, I said to
Isn't
Don,
that
he
funny?
needs to be in the sun, and I did that for you. And for Angus, I said, look,
You
he
want it
doesn't
paling
have
up.
he doesn't have red blood.
Yeah.
It's yellow blood.
Yeah.
Can I change him? So
Yellow base.
whenever I'm doing the makeup, he has like a pale alabaster base.
Right.
He's got blue tones. I
Right.
shaded him in blue. I made up a lip color for him. So he looks totally different when I do his
That's
makeup
awesome.
than when anybody else does his makeup. And Don was really, he said, well, let's do that test to see if you like it. And he did, and it was
Yeah,
good. And
yeah.
he liked yours too, and everything was good.
Well, that's what is great about Don. You know, he let you do your thing. You know, and then
Right.
he'd come let you do it. He'd come in and check it out, and if there was something a little different that
Yeah,
he wanted, he would
have
just
you
go,
tweak it.
Right.
"Yeah, you do this, man, try this," and yeah, and he's so great to work with, as
Director.
just a creative. You
Yeah.
know, he's terrific.
Because he was always involved in every
Oh,
little
yeah.
aspect.
Every
of it.
aspect. Right.
Yeah, he wasn't
Yeah.
like sitting there going, "I'm the director." Or,
No.
You know, it was never like that. It was like, oh yeah, that was great. You know,
And what was
or
your
can we try this? You know,
What was your experience like on Bubba Hotep?
yeah,
That was a little different for me
Mm-hmm.
because I did not do Bruce Campbell's makeup.
Right.
That was the effects people. Originally,
K&B.
I was
yeah.
supposedly hired to do everybody, but K&B told Don that they wanted their own makeup person.
Mm-hmm.
Even though K&B did the other movies and they knew me, so I did everybody else. I was in charge of Ossie Davis and everybody else, but I didn't do Bruce at all.
yeah.
I did you though.
You
Yes.
did me.
Yes,
I
you
did.
did.
Don't tell Gigi.
I won't tell Gigi.
Okay, thanks.
I told her.
I appreciate that.
She let me.
Oh,
We had a conversation.
No, that
Oh,
was,
good.
It was because on Bubba Hotep, I was an extras wrangler. I had to oversee their wardrobe, and then Reggie's assistant, and then there were some other things that I wound up doing on Bubba Hotep. I can't even remember what all I did.
Well, I actually was in charge of Bubba Hotep.
Yeah.
Now the masks and everything were all done, but I put in his
Bob Ivy.
Yeah, I put in Bob's contact lenses, and then it was also my job to make sure that, I had to tack down the mask and make sure it was in place and make sure everything was in place and, KY him up, and if he needed some blood or whatever he needed around the eyes, that was my job to do that. So I was his wrangler as well.
Well, and on
So
a
much
Coscarelli
detail, you
film,
know.
on a Coscarelli film, you can guarantee there's one of two things that are going to happen. It's either going to be incredibly hot or incredibly cold. So, and I think, as I recall, I think on Bubba Hotep we had both. There was like a couple of days that were, very, very hot, and then there was,
Well,
then
all
it was
those-
cold
but
all the other
suits,
nights.
The night suits,
The night
were
suits were all
always
cold.
really cold.
You could see Bob Ivy's breath coming out of the mask, which I thought was hilarious. And I remember getting asked in a interview one time if that was CGI or if it was real. I went, no, it's organic.
It's organic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The real Megillah.
Now on Phantasm 4, you sort of carried that kind of through. Again, you're working on Bob Ivy, and again, you're working with a mask, and
That's right.
from K&B, and that mask was a kind of a pain, as I recall.
It was.
I remember I had to come in when we first started. I came in and did the detailing on it, and you came in the next day and you went, "Who the hell did that?" And I went, "Do what?" And he's like, "Somebody painted my mask." And I went, "Oh yeah, the demon trooper did that."
Yeah, because I think it was my job part of my job was to repaint it,
Yeah,
to make sure it
was consistent.
It was consistent
Yeah.
all the time. And even though I didn't, on 4,
I can't remember why they told me to do that. I don't know if it was a time constraint or what. I know Sujin wasn't going to be there.
well, for some reason, so here's the thing, is that I didn't even know 4 was going on. So Sujin, I guess, had left.
Yes.
And when Sujin had to leave, I got a phone call.
Yep.
Hey, we're doing some pickups, which was more than just pickups.
No, it
Pickups.
was the other half of the
It
film.
was the other half of the film. We're doing some pickups. Are you available? And I said, yeah. You know, I had 2 little kids at the time, so I had to talk to my husband. I said, and boy, that mask scared my son.
Oh.
He was terrified. We
I'll
brought him on
bet.
set one
Well, I
day.
got news for
I'll
you.
bet.
He was terrified.
There was a couple
that.
of times where Bob was, and Bob really, he's got
He's
such a
this
morbid sense of humor. And he would be walking, we would be out in Death Valley in the pitch black of the night, and we'd be walking, he would be walking up with his down coat on, and all of a sudden that mask just pops up out of the dark, and it was like, oh crap, you know, it's like, and so he got this real giggle about him, that he could scare people just by walking along the street, you know.
That used to happen to Angus as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Yes.
He would just be sitting there when he was, you know, made up.
Yes.
And people were like literally afraid to approach
To
him.
approach him.
Because he looked so scary.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to go near him.
I remember one day when we were working in Mausoleum in Compton, and it was on 4, was it? When he was sitting in a hallway. He was sitting right at just back from
It was
the opening
4.
of a hallway,
Yeah, I think it was 4.
and you're in a mausoleum, right?
Right.
And
You're always in a mausoleum.
yeah, always.
Phantasm.
And you know, you'd walk up and turn the corner, and there he was, and it was like, holy shit!
That was like on all the films.
Yeah, Angus, come on, man.
All the films. Because he was so quiet.
Yes.
Oh, he
Just
was.
sat there.
One of my favorite photos that Kristen got of Rory Angus was of him as the tall man sniffing the artificial flowers on the mausoleums. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, the funny part about the mausoleums, when you talk about
Right.
mausoleums, on the set of Phantasm 2, when we shot interior mausoleums on the soundstage, the set decorators, they had the names of all the crew on the mausoleum.
Did
Right,
they?
I remember that. Yeah, I
Wow.
Do you
remember that. I do.
So we would have to try and go and see where our name was and which crypt it was on.
Wow.
So, yeah. That was
Well,
pretty
on
fun.
It's
Phantasm
fun,
3,
huh?
It was.
inevitably, I think 3, I think it first started with 3. It might have been 2. I can't remember. The crew first had a problem going into the mausoleum because of the smell. There was a smell.
Oh, because it, you mean on the set or in,
Yeah.
in the actual
The
mausoleum?
In the
actual mausoleum.
mausoleum.
Because one of the ones, was it 3? I think it was 3.
I think it was
had
3.
rained.
Yeah.
It had rained
Yeah.
and there were puddles.
Wow.
So there was stagnant water. And
Water.
it did.
In
It
the
smelled-
mausoleum.
In the mausoleum, and it did. It smelled.
Well, they
Man,
Horrible.
the
what we go through for art.
Exactly.
on Phantasm 4,
Who is
we had,
Art?
we had shot out all this stuff that up in Lone Pine and Death Valley and up in that area, and the Alabama Hills, and then we came back, and then we had to do the mausoleum scenes then, and the crew, Reggie and I get to the location, and the crew's just standing around, and of course, you know, Dawn doesn't like that.
Right.
And and so they go, what's, you know, one of them comes over to me. It was the sound guy that we had met, you know, that had been working with us. And he says, he goes, Gigi, he goes, we need you to do your thing. I went, what thing? What are you talking about? He says, we need you to do your thing. And I went, what thing? He goes, you know, that thing with the sage. I went, the smudging?
Oh.
He goes, yeah, I want you to, you know, we want you to go in as smudge. And I went, why? He goes, I said, you know that they didn't die here, right? You know, they're just, this is kind of like the storage locker. He goes, I said, you know, they didn't die here, right? He goes, yeah. I said, you know, it's kind of like a little storage locker. They putting your old tennis shoes in the gym locker. You know, sometimes it has a smell. Unfortunately, things like that happen here. He goes, no, something is dead in there. And I went, yes, they are all dead. Okay. And he goes, no, Gigi, he goes, we are not walking into that mausoleum until you smudge the set. And I went,
I think I remember this.
Do you remember
Okay.
this?
I do,
Yeah.
because
I said, okay, all right.
I mean, the crew actually said, "We're not. That's it.
Well,
Get rid of the
it turns
smell.
out that
Figure
you
it
walk
out.
in the door. You walk in the door.
Go, Gigi."
There was a distinct smell of decomp, and it was a pigeon that had died in the belfry. But they weren't buying that. They were just like, we don't care. We want you to get everybody's permission for us to be there. And I went, my kids are not here, you know. But I'll do it just for you. But you have to promise that once I do this, you'll go on set. Yes, we'll be fine. So I went in, I smudged, and I come back out, and he goes, okay, so are we good to go everywhere? And I went, yeah, just don't go upstairs. He goes, why not? I went, because I didn't smudge up there. And he goes, oh, okay. And so then when we went to do Bubba Hotep, there was all these weird things that was happening at the facility that we were at. And somebody goes, would you please, could you like smudge again? And I went, whatever. So I as soon as I lit the sage, somebody was going, what's that smell? Where is that smoke coming from? Is somebody smoking on the set? It smells like pot. I'm like, okay. So I conveniently take it off set and put it outside and just let them think that that's what we did, is we smudged the whole area. But it's like things were, they were wigging out because there were things that were happening. So it's just like, whatever pleases our crews to keep
You
them
want
going.
to explain smudging?
Smudging is the who's doing
No,
it?
everybody knows about smudging.
Smudging is traditionally either a Wiccan or a Native American tradition that you take the sage and just like in Catholic Church they have the incense and like that. So you take the sage and tobacco and you go and you basically do a blessing and of the area, and especially focusing on the portals like the windows or doorways and like that. And you're basically saying, we're going to be here, we mean no disrespect, and that's why we're here. So right now, I think it was not long after Bubba Hotep though, or maybe it was Phantasm 4. We were in Long Beach, and there was a place called the Dorothy Bembridge House, which was a Victorian place, and she was murdered in there. And so the fire department's auxiliary, we got in touch with each other, and they were like, could you come do a reading of the house? I was like, okay, sure. So I came and I did this reading for them, and they were like, because they have no clue who it was that murdered her and how it happened. And I said, I gave them indications of what I was seeing and what I was smelling. And because I would, she would, I would sit in her favorite chair. I didn't know it was her favorite chair. Sat in her favorite chair, and it was like she kept wanting to reach over and grab her tea, except her tea wasn't there, And in her last moments, she felt like she was smelling dirt. She smelled earth or grass or dirt, And they were insisting that she passed away in her chair. And I went, well, maybe that's what you guys think, but I'm just telling you what I'm being shown. So anyway, a lot of the crew would ask me these stories. And to come around to that. So anyway, so that's smudging, more than you ever really wanted to know.
Reality meets fantasy.
What was the? Can you tell me the first time you met Reggie?
Well, it's funny. I was trying to think about that because I actually met Reggie on Survival Quest.
Ah,
but
it's the wacky parasailer, right? Is that right?
No, you were a pilot on that, weren't you?
I was a hang glider
The hang
pilot.
glider.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, but I had never seen Phantasm. So I didn't know who you were.
Of course.
So it wasn't until I did Phantasm 2 when I said, oh, you know what?
Wait a minute, I worked with that guy.
And
Maybe I should go watch the first one. Yeah.
So I had already met Reggie pre Phantasm 2, but neither one of us remembered. So it was just like, you know, meeting for the first time. But for me, I was meeting a lot of people
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
But Reggie made an impression. He let me do, you know, what
Yeah.
I needed to do. And the thing with Reggie's always laid back
Yeah.
and calm and laid back, and it's always a pleasure
Oh,
working
thank you.
with
Thank
Reggie.
you.
Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
What about Angus Scrimm?
The nicest guy you could ever be. He was such a lovely man.
Really? Yeah.
Such a lovely
Very
man.
much.
I really enjoyed working with him so much. He was very sweet and kind, and you know, he would show us that his liner notes from when he did
Right.
liner notes on his records. And
Yeah,
just,
he won a Grammy for the White Album, the Beatles' White Album, doing the liner notes for them.
That's just amazing. I mean, he had such an interesting life, and it's so strange now because I remember, you know, I was young when we shot Phantasm 2 when I met him, and I was thinking, boy, he's kind of old, but he really wasn't.
No.
He wasn't at all. I don't even think he was 60 yet. I think he was in his
Right.
late 50s when
Right.
we did Phantasm 2.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was just wonderful. Such a lovely man. Such
Yeah.
a lovely
Great
man.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
Very the greatest gentleman.
He was definitely a
Capital
gentleman.
G.
Exactly.
That I think I've ever known. You know.
Do you see changes in attitude reflected in the roles of female crew members on films these days, based on what we experienced when we were first starting out versus now?
I think because of all that's been going on, I think
I mean, with the Me Too
with the
and
Me Too movement, that women are being seen more. Whereas maybe before there weren't a lot of women on sets, where now there's more and more women on sets, and sometimes all female crews too.
Yep.
And women are being more welcomed, I think, into all areas of the film industry,
Yeah.
rather than just segued into, you know, certain pockets of it.
Well, and then with Phantasm, we've had from the first one to the fifth one, there were over 144 plus women that have worked in front of or behind the camera. And I mean, that's impressive for a horror genre franchise as large as it is. You know,
And
that
the
women
female-
were allowed to have so many positions.
And the female characters were always really strong.
Very
Yes.
strong characters.
Always really. Yeah. I mean, I was just amazed, you know, through the years at how strong they were. But again, you know, that goes back to Shirley Coscarelli, Don's mom. She was a very strong woman, and
And beautiful too.
yeah, beautiful,
Right
very
into the
beautiful
last.
woman. So you know, and so it really changed the horror thing quite a bit, because before Phantasm, trying to think of anything before Phantasm that did what Phantasm did in terms of female characters. They were strong. They had a position.
Exactly.
They meant something to the film, and they didn't just show up as a pretty face and then
And then leave,
yeah,
or get killed off, because
Right.
that's what you do.
Exactly.
yeah.
Now, all right. So, as a makeup artist, if there was one thing in your entire kit that you could keep with you in, like, the wilderness or something here, what would that one thing be?
That one was so hard to look at that question, because there were so many different things, and the only thing that I could, as a makeup artist, if I had to do makeup on somebody, the thing that I would think of the most is a tube of lipstick. Because with lipstick, it's not only good for your lips. You
Right.
can
Right.
use it for rouge, you can
Right.
use it for eyeshadow.
You can send an
Okay.
SOS.
You could, depending on the tube, you could use blood, make it
Yes.
blood. You
Yes.
can do many things with a tube of lipstick.
Yes,
so
you can.
I guess if I had to pick one thing, I guess a tube of lipstick would be the most all-purpose thing that I could think of.
I think again, that's, independent film.
Independent filmmaking.
Where you don't have a lot of money to work with, so you
Well, the
make
funny
do.
thing is you're improvising.
Yeah.
All the time.
Even though you hate improv, you now become an improviser.
You know what's interesting? I don't mind doing improv in makeup or in art or anything that way, because I think people aren't staring at you,
Right.
waiting for your next line.
Right.
And even though I could do improv, I was always afraid of that flop in front of people.
Yes.
And I was very shy.
Yes.
And I did not, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
That was not me.
Yeah. I
So-
can dig it.
But otherwise, I really do kind of like detective-y, improv-y things. Well, let's see, what can I do here? Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of
This'll
the
work.
MacGyver thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
MacGyver, there you go.
Don has called me his Lady MacGyver before,
Yeah,
because
Lady
he also calls
MacGyver.
me his pit bull. So we'll go beyond that. What is the most amazing makeup tool that you have seen today?
I'm not sure. I was maybe when the brushing came in.
That was impressive. I still haven't brought myself to like really go through the classes for airbrushing. I really wish I could. Maybe we could do this together.
We could. I did airbrushing as an artist,
Right.
but not
Exactly. Me too.
not really as a makeup
And they
artist.
go, "Oh, it's the same thing." No, it's not.
But it's not. You have to be extremely careful when
Right.
you use an airbrush. It's really a coordination with the finger, because if you spray it too hard, it just splatters. And you don't get it all even.
Yeah.
But they
And then you
use
wind up
that-
having to go to the wedgie sponge anyway. So
Right, but they use that in prosthetics as well now.
Right, they
So
do.
it's a crossover.
yeah, it really
So-
is. It's amazing to me the stuff that they come up with. No, when we started out as makeup artists, we didn't have to have a cosmetology license to get into film, TV, and video. How has that changed? And is there a difference between a professionally trained cosmetologist versus a freelance makeup artist?
Yes, there is, and I will tell you that because I started out just going to makeup school, cosmetology school, and makeup school for theatrical makeup are two totally
different animals.
things.
Yep.
Yeah.
In
Just
cosmetology
ask Tom
school,
Savini.
they only teach you makeup for the test, or they did when
Right.
I went, because I actually
They teach to the test.
actually
Right.
became an esthetician afterwards and went through cosmetology school.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's a big difference. You don't get the kind of makeup experience that you need to really be a makeup artist. It's really good for skincare,
Right.
which you actually need, because that's your palette, that's your
Right.
face. If your skin isn't properly taken care of, then it's hard to apply makeup. So there is a big difference between. Do you need
yeah.
to be a cosmetologist? No.
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 It helps.
It helps. It's a sanitary issue.
Right.
But
And
when
there's
I
a
went
discipline that goes along with it.
Right, but when I went to makeup school, they taught us sanitary. No, you don't double dip.
Me too.
No, you don't do this. No,
Yeah.
you don't do that. So I already knew what you're not supposed to be doing,
Right.
as opposed to, what you do when you're an esthetician.
Right.
So they are very different. But now I can wax, do facials.
All right. What? Let's see. What is the favorite special effects gag that you never used but you wish you had?
I don't know.
It's a hard question.
It is a hard
It's
question.
a tough one.
Do you
Because
like
there's too
Face
many.
Off? Do you watch Face Off at all?
I do watch
I
sometimes.
love that.
I do watch it. I think it's a fascinating show. Sometimes I'll sit there and I'll go, oh, I remember when I did that. I remember the first real gag that I did, though, which was an on-camera.
We sit there critiquing, right? And Reggie's the
Right.
biggest. Reggie's the biggest critiquer. He'll sit there and go, "You wouldn't do that," or
Well,
"Did you see
that
those
show's
lines
hard.
around the eyes?" Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but they're in the parameters that they're given and what they're given. It's a tough competition.
Very
I think
tough.
it's a tough competition.
We have a friend, Michael Broom, that went through it, And he was telling us some of the behind the scenes of that, and it's brutal. It's
I'm
really
sure
brutal.
it is. I was looking at that show going,
It's like Big Brother meets makeup, you know.
yeah.
It's really, really bizarre.
But I did do an on-screen slit wrist for somebody who was doing.
a suicide
Slit,
thing.
Yeah, and it was interesting because they literally had to tell me, because what do I know? I've never. They said,
No,
you don't go this
you
way.
go this
you
way.
have to go over the
You
vein.
open the vein.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And they
I
used
do
to see so
study-
many people slit their wrists, like, you know, and
It's
it was
been
like,
a fascinating experience
It
being
really-
a makeup artist
yeah.
to do all the. When you need to do an effect, you actually need to learn
The forensics of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very fascinating when you're.
It
doing
is.
the-
And-
Someone asked
I
me
mean,
that.
it's a
They
huge
asked,
talent
do you,
thing,
what do
as
you
w-
do
know.
to learn your gags? And I went,
Mhm.
I study crime scene photos,
Exactly.
and I study autopsy photos.
Exactly. You need to
You
know exactly what it really looks like
Right.
in order to really reproduce
Yeah.
it. So yeah, you need to look at that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Wow.
think the most fascinating one was where it was get gory, but it was where there was a scene. I forget which film it was, but there was a scene that somebody wanted me to do a headshot, but the headshot that they were asking for was a double barrel shotgun, and I'm like, do you know what happens to a body when you do that? Because I don't think you want that. And they went, oh, you mean the gore? And I went, no. I said, and then I brought a crime scene photo for them, and I showed them, and they went, well, where's the head? I went, that's my
Where's the
point.
head? Where is it really?
There's no head. You know, the neck is just a
The head,
really
well,
loose.
just go down the hall here,
Yeah.
Exactly.
and it's the last door on the left.
Oh, Reg.
Right.
Okay, last one. Is it important? Do you feel it's important for women to support each other financially and on creative in a creative aspect for endeavors in the field these days? Is it more important? Is it the same as it ever was?
I think it's always been important, but I don't really know about right now. But I know in the old days it was more of a really not helping. It was, oh, you're doing this. Well, I need that job. So what can I do
to
to get
circumvent
that
you.
job? Exactly. And it was
Backstabbing.
tough.
Yeah,
What'd
Yeah.
you say?
backstabbing.
Oh yeah, it was pretty, to me it was more of a backstabbing business. I
Yeah.
think maybe not so much now,
Mhm.
but
I think there's a lot more support now, but
I would hope
but
so,
there's
because it really
that
is
that
important.
aspect is still out there. Hell, I get the backstabbing from the men too, so I catch it. I just assume everybody hates me when I walk on set. So
Yeah, they used to call backstabbing competitiveness.
yes,
Oh, there you go. Yes, I guess that's
You know,
true.
just kind of sweep it under
called
the
it being
rug.
But you know,
successful.
when people are putting your makeup in their books and passing it off as their
sure
own,
as their
Yeah.
own. We've had that happen
And-
before.
and-
Reggie's the one that spotted it. In fact,
really, because
So-
it happened. It's happened to me, and people trying to downplay your importance or how you got on a film, or you're on a film and
it's
somebody,
nepotism.
somebody wants your job,
Yeah.
and so they try and get the talent to
Mhm.
say, look, I'm doing this, so why don't I just do that too? And luckily, I've been lucky in a lot of aspects where they've just said, no,
No.
we're not going to go that way.
Yeah.
But
Great.
it's sometimes it's tough. But I love being a makeup artist. I've always loved it.
We love your work. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for participating in this, because it really means the world to us that you're involved with the Women of Phantasm. We couldn't have it without you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Yep.
really glad that I could be here.
Oh, we are too.
Thank you so much.